Our speaker today is a wonderful human being, lives in the old city of Jerusalem. I was honored to be there for many years. Runs an organization called Heritage House, which is a great organization for outreaching young people. We have some of those young people here with us today. And also is a big activist, a big doer, a big person to make things happen in Hebron. Rather than go through more things of what he does, I want to introduce you right now to a great friend and a great hero of the Jewish people, ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Ben Packer.
Hi everyone, good evening. It's very nice to be here. Last year I was here and I think there was an ice storm. This year it was much easier to get into the parking lot. Last year I said a lot of prayers before driving to the parking lot. If you remember, there was this big, maybe it happens every time, I don't know, but you really had to. You had to fly into the parking lot. It was quite intimidating for a guy from the South in America. Anyway, so it's very good, nice to be here, and I actually teach a little bit at Aish in Jerusalem, so it's nice to have an opportunity to be at Aish here in Toronto. So tonight I want to talk about something somewhat specific that has a lot of ramifications, but also feel free, anything that's on your mind is fine with me. So we'll start with the most recent thing because the topic is very important. We're talking about the collapse of the Palestinian Authority, which, lo aleinu, when you hear about some people who are sick, you don't need to be a doctor. You hear a lot of times when somebody's sick with a serious ailment, that's not the ailment that ends up killing them. It's an interesting thing. Normally it's something else. They have something really bad, but in the end, something else is what does them in. It's an interesting scientific medical thing, right? And that's the case of the Palestinian Authority right now, most likely. They have inherent illnesses, you could call it, but there's no telling what's actually going to be the thing that's going to finally do them in. It could really could be anything. And if you look at the most recent thing, the rockets from Gaza, right? If you look on Facebook or wherever else, you see everybody screaming, "Take out Hamas! Take them out!" And of course, this is a reasonable thing to say. They're horrible people. But even if you go back 10 years ago, there was this idea that if we take out Hamas, maybe the Palestinian Authority will be in charge again, and maybe that's not the end of the world. Yeah, of course, a lot of right-wing people would say that's also terrible, but they're better. Of course, that was the original idea of the disengagement, which has turned out, of course, not to be so splendid. But the idea, of course, was predicated on that the Palestinian Authority would be in charge, not that Hamas would. Right? That was the idea, right? That didn't last very long. But that was the idea. So now you have a situation. You're almost 15 years later, right? And Hamas is still in charge in the Palestinian and in Gaza, right? And now to put the Palestinian Authority in there would seem to make, absolutely zero sense, because why would you put in something that the next day could be finished? So I think that's one of the reasons when you see everyone say, take out Hamas, take out Hamas, take out the Hamas leadership, take out Hamas, two different things, but to say let's just get rid of Hamas altogether, well, I'm not anti that. No, I'm not. But the point is, what exactly do you want to replace them? If you say Israel should replace them, okay, at least that's something that's possible, right? But if you say, well, we want to replace them with a moderate Palestinian leadership, well, I don't know exactly where you would find a sustainable moderate Palestinian leadership, but if you can find one, let us know. Because not that I think it's a good idea necessarily, but it would be interesting to see such a thing, because it doesn't really exist at this point, right? And what we're seeing on Israel on the ground, I work a lot on the ground in Israel, on the lines, on the borders, so to speak, that aren't real borders, but have become borders. And the difference over the last 2 years, and of course you can't deny, President Trump has played a huge role in this, probably more than he even realizes, and there have been massive changes on the ground in all kinds of different ways. And the reason for this primarily is that both the Arabs and the Jews feel the change is coming. A big change is coming. For the last 25 years, this idea of the Palestinian Authority running the place, it's incredible how cemented it was. It really is. You know, he said the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Well, also our enemies don't slumber so much. And even the ones among us who are not necessarily our enemies, but are the misguided ones, they're quite active. It's always shocking to me to see how much infrastructure they really put into place and how much they ingrained this idea that these areas that were supposed to become a Palestinian state according to their plan are simply not ours. It's shocking to see that. You know, you say to somebody, you know, Jericho. I remember on a birthright trip in maybe 2008, the topic of Jericho came up, and the tour guide said, "Oh, Jericho, that has nothing to do with us. That has nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with, you know, it's not ours. It's nothing to do with us." And she wasn't saying it to be provocative. That's really what she felt. She didn't even realize how offensive that was. You know, that's how she was brought up. And these places are not ours, and that is not going to change, right? And now all of a sudden, everyone's starting to feel, hey, maybe that is going to change. That might change quite soon. And what's going to happen if that does change? What am I going to do? And you see this especially among the Arabs, because they are the ones who are living in the Palestinian Authority, and they are the ones seeing the breakdown. You know, if you hear about the government stopping funds to some government program, okay, that's interesting. But if you're on that government program, right, you're going to realize it much faster, right? And the Palestinian Authority, of course, has been on welfare since the beginning. An incredible welfare, you know, one of the most lucrative welfares in the history of the world, right? And all of a sudden, money's not coming, and things are breaking down. And these are things that have been going on for literally decades. And all of a sudden, the money's stopping to come. And of course, President Trump, once again, is one of the most extremes on this. He's just cut off. I mean, and you see these signs, you know, American Project, American Project, American Project. And now, you know, you're not going to see any more of those signs. The last one is already up. President Trump has just, you know, said, we're just done with this idea, right? And by not funding certain UN things, same thing. So there are things that have just been taken for granted, literally for some people's entire lives. And for some people, maybe not their entire lives, but long enough that they feel like this is not changeable. This is a permanent thing. And actually, it appears right now that it's not. And again, the Palestinians feel this, the Arabs feel this more closely than anybody else. You know, they see the lack of authority happening in certain areas. Right? Because Hamas, of course, feels this as well. And they're also quite assertive in areas now. And the Jews also feel it. The Jews are also feeling it now. And the Jews are also moving in areas now to say, oh, one second, this is not a foregone conclusion that this area is going to be part of a Palestinian state. As a matter of fact, if we act fast enough, it looks like it's a very realistic possibility that it will be ours forever. You know, there's a story about from the 6-Day War. The 6-Day War, one of the conspiracy theories, you've probably heard this, is that, you know, Israel planned the whole thing in order to take land. Okay, now I'm not saying there was anything wrong with that, but the evidence it incredibly points to the fact that there was no planning whatsoever when it came to the taking of any land. You know, it was just, you know, a matter of taking out the air forces and stuff, but the taking of actual land. So there's a story of, I don't remember what exactly, but some IDF generals standing on Mount Rachel. Mount Rachel was, at the time, the southern edge of Jerusalem. It's kibbutz, actually, within Jerusalem, a lot of weddings there. And standing there and looking out into the hills by Bethlehem, and Judea, and saying, remember, we used to go to those hills. Who knows the next time we'll be able to go back. And they were serious. I mean, who knew? It could be, you know, it could be a long time. And it was like, I don't know, like a few weeks later. You know, like that's, you know, and they were part of it. It wasn't like these were like some kind of guys who didn't know what was going on. These are high people in the army. And they said, who knows when the next time we'll be able to go there is. You know, we just had this big church ceremony in the old city. I don't know if you ever were fortunate enough to be there for the Holy Fire ceremony. It is You wouldn't believe it unless you saw it. I mean, it's quite a moment in the old city. You've heard of this? It's an Orthodox Christian ceremony.
Armenian?
All the Orthodox. No, but the Armenians and the Greeks are the main. They've taken it over basically, and they have a stranglehold on the church there, and it's very exciting to watch. It's the most secure day of the entire year in the old city. There is no other day with security. Like even when Putin comes, and Putin gets a lot of security, there's no day that has checkpoints like this Holy Fire Day. You've never seen such a thing. There's at least there's circles of what do they call it? Checkpoints, perimeter, whatever you call it. There's at least 5 or 6 of them, just to get to this church. I mean, it's brutal. It's brutal. If you don't, it's not like it makes TSA, or I don't know what you guys have in Canada, whatever your TSA is called. I mean, it looks like, if you can't convince them that you're not Christian, I mean, they don't let Asian people in. Why would you? Even Asian people aren't allowed in. They're not allowed in during the thing. They're afraid they're going to the church, and they fight over there. And the point is that the Russians are on the outs. They fight with the Russians. The Russians aren't allowed in, and that's where the big fight is. You say to yourself, well, how did this happen? How long does this go on for? Well, it's been about 130 years, 140 years. There was a fight with sticks. In the church, and the Greeks won. And that's it. That's it. And I mean, it could have been 10 minutes later. It could have been 10 years later. It's been over 100 years that the Greeks are in charge because they won a fight with sticks. No guns or anything. No one was killed, as far as I know. But they won a little fight, and it's been lasted for over 100 years. So in the Middle East, it's very difficult to know when there's going to be massive change and how long it's going to last. This we know for sure. The 6-Day War, of course, being an extreme example. And so now we're at one of those moments again. Now we're at a moment where everybody's feeling that. It's a feeling that everybody has. Of course, it's also based on just facts on the ground. Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, is still alive for now, but his health certainly is not good. He was just in Germany for some routine tests. We all go to Germany for routine tests, obviously. You travel to another continent in order to get some routine tests. Obviously, there's some pretty serious issues there medically with him. He doesn't look good. You go to the doctor and they ask you, do you smoke, drink, all that kind. He does all the stuff you're not supposed to do. So he's got all the health conditions that you're not supposed to have, and so it doesn't look like he's going to be around much longer. And there is no obvious replacement, of course. There's a lot of fighting.
So could it break down to tribalism,
well, not just
each district?
Yeah, regional. Yeah,
regional.
That's Mordechai Kedar talks a lot about that. How the different areas are not really connected. The options are many. The only option that's not really practical is the situation to continue the way it is. I'm not saying that's totally impossible, but I'd say it's the least likely. I mean, you gotta understand how this Palestinian Authority thing, we look at it and we say, well, look how competent they are. Look how corrupt they are. Look how bad they are at negotiating. I mean, we see all the negatives, and there are quite a few. But, I mean, they've held on. Yasser Arafat died, and not much changed. Yeah, they've held on. They really have, and a lot of it had to do with money. When you have that much money flowing in, you pay people off. And if you need more money and you ask for it and you get it, so then that's a pretty good system. So they always had a lot of money coming, which was really, really helpful. And right now, due to a lot of different factors, including the United States, that money is not doing well. By the way, a lot of the other Arabs are not so happy with the situation, and they're also cutting back on their money. They're not so quick to be throwing money at this thing because you're going to throw money. No one wants to give the last. No one wants to give the last dollar. Nobody ever wants to give the last dollar to the organization or the last $10 million, right? You don't want to give the money, and then tomorrow you find out it's not there anymore.
Qatar is too generous.
Qatar is generous, well, to Hamas.
Yeah. How about the rest of it?
No, you don't see. As a matter of fact, who do you think? I know this is a very knowledgeable crowd, so who do you think is the biggest Muslim country, the Muslim country most active right now financially in the old city?
Turkey.
Yes, it's a very knowledgeable crowd. Yeah, Turkey.
Wow.
Turkey is very, very active.
What do you mean by active?
Financially and physically.
Yeah, okay.
They're the only ones
What do you mean,
who send tourists And if you see them, it's not hard to know who they are because they wear these name tags that are essentially giant Turkish flags. So they're obviously not name tags. I mean, they are, but the main point is that you see the flag, right? And this is not for us. This is not for Jews. As a matter of fact, they'd prefer if Jews didn't even notice, right? This is for the Arabs. This is for the Arabs to realize that their real leader should not be the Palestinian Authority. There's no future in that. And by the way, there's very little past in that. The Turks, okay, they also have their negatives, don't get me wrong. But they have a long history. They have a very long history. And they value that history. And they say to the Arabs, what's so bad? They both say to the Jews also, what's so bad with the Turks being in charge? So bad? We did a good job. Yeah, there were times where it wasn't perfect, but in 400 years, you got to expect there to be times that aren't so perfect. But for 400 years, we did a better job than anybody else, didn't we? Were we not better than the Crusaders? Well, yes, they were, by the way. And this Palestinian Authority thing, this is a nice idea, but it doesn't work. And the British, that was terrible. And the Jews, can't be taken seriously. 70 years. What's 70 years to 400 years? It's not serious. So the Turks say to the Arabs, they say, not the Palestinian Authority anymore. It's not the Palestinian Authority. It's us. We're the future. We're the future, right? And they say, well, what about the Israelis? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Have a little faith. And by the way, let's talk about have a little faith. The Turks have to also be the religious leaders. What's the problem? They're not so religious, the Turks, I mean, they're kind of like a Balchuva situation over there. The leader became from, and now he expects everybody else to come along, and they're a little slow. They're a little slow in how fast they're coming, right? So they get a little behind in terms of their Muslim kite over there. So what do? They have to dress up in this whole garb, They got to be firmer than the Pope over there, So they got the women got the head things going on, and men also have to have hats but you ever see like somebody who hasn't worn tzitzis before? It's always something like a little off, So they're always like fixing themselves. They're always like adjusting. Like, does this look good? Why does this thing keep falling off? So and it's funny to see, and they're making a real effort. But
you see them a lot.
You see them, of course, all the time. And they're not talking to us. They don't want to see us. They want to see that. They want to see the Arabs. They want the Arabs to see them and say, yes, these people are our leaders. Look, they're religious. They got money. They got history. Okay, they speak a different language. That's a little weird. We don't like that. Okay, whatever. But they also know Arabic, sometimes. And this is good. And here's the money. I mean, they're renovating mosques, stuff, right? I mean, people are familiar with the Old City. Not people are familiar with the Old City, but a mosque was just renovated basically right next to the Jewish quarter, and it was a whole thing. The mosque not in use. All of a sudden they showed up. They put in the green lights. They renovated the whole thing. It was a whole to do, right? And so the other Arabs also competed with them now, to try to compete. But Turkey is throwing it in, and Turkish people are allowed to visit, and they do. As we said, and why is this happening now? Because everybody's feeling there's a vacuum. There's a vacuum. There's a rush to fill the vacuum. Okay, and everybody's in it.
Does the Waqf like it?
No. The Waqf is Jordanian. No, well, no, look. I mean, they'll be happy to go to the highest bidder. When you show up with more money, okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. But competition is good for the consumer. When you're the Arab on the ground, and people are bidding for you, the Palestinian Authority had a monopoly for years. So what do you think they did? You know what they did. They kept the money. They weren't so generous. They throw money here and there a little bit. I'll tell you two quick things that we learned. We learned this stuff from on the ground. That we took back some apartments recently in the Muslim Quarter. They're owned by Jews. The Arabs were squatting in, and everyone knew the Arabs were going to lose in court eventually. They're a very bad case, but. So the Palestinian Authority was concerned they would just leave. So they gave them all new floors. So you have these apartments that have brand new tiled floors. Otherwise, we're in pretty bad shape. But the floors were gorgeous, right? The Palestinian Authority built them floors, right? And then we had another case where we took back a place, and we went to go pay the power bill, And they said it was already paid.
Huh?
So he said, oh, well, that must be a mistake. Who paid the power bill? It's the Palestinian Authority. They always pay the power bill. So I said, well, just pretend like the same people still live here. But this is stopping now, and Turkey is the one coming in and saying, bring your loyalty to us, because even though Turkey doesn't have a solution, Turkey doesn't have a way of wresting the old city away from Israel right now, but they hope in the future they'll have what to be said. They'll have what to be said. But everybody feels, that's what everybody feels. You feel the Palestinian Authority collapsing, creating a giant vacuum, and then the question is, who is going to fill it? Is it Hamas? Is it the Jews? Is it Turkey? It reminds a lot of 1948. Because in 1948, who was going to take over the old city? Well, it was not obvious at all. I mean, the Jordanians eventually did take over, but that's not who I would have bet on. How about Britain not leaving? Well, but they didn't have to.
When there was a decision.
Well, yeah, but they can always say, listen, look what's going on over here. It's craziness. We got to stay. America's leaving Syria too, aren't they? Yeah, at some point, right? But at some point, yeah, this is crazy. We can't leave. Or what? By the way, Egypt. I mentioned Mount Raquel before. Egypt got to Mount Raquel in 1948. From all the way Egypt, all the way to the southern part of Jerusalem. Mount Raquel, but their supply lines were not, what they could have been. They conquered Hebron. Egypt conquered Hebron. They could have. Can you imagine? It could have been. Hebron could have been part of Egypt. I mean, it basically was for a few days. So there was a lot of uncertainty then, and when there's uncertainty, stuff happens. So a lot of the stuff we're dealing with in the old city today happened in 1948, or right before it. The question, the stuff that's happening right now, how long? That's been 70 years. 70 years. We're still dealing with many things from 70 years ago. So the things that are happening right now, how long are we going to be dealing with that stuff? I don't know, but I tell you who's the most confident. The Jews right now. The Jews are the most confident. It's nice to see too, by the way. The Jews are very confident. Very confident. And it's important to be confident because confidence leads to action. We were talking before, the statistics, if you look back to the population statistics in Judea and Samaria from the pre-Oslo times, there was reason not to be confident. There was reason not to invest. I can tell you, I mean, I like to consider myself somewhat of an optimist sometimes, and aggressive to some degree. I remember in 1999, I was in Hebron, my first time I ever went there. First of all, the streets were full of Arabs, full. You had to push your way through. You literally had to push your way through. It's okay in the Middle East to push your way through, but you had to push your way through. I got to the yeshiva there. The yeshiva there, Shavei Hebron, and it was 2 floors, one underground, one above ground, and then there were 2 or 3 floors that were just a cement shell. So in America, of course, in Canada, that would be blocked off, for liability reasons, stuff like that. But of course, Israel was wide open, so I climbed to the top on the concrete ramps, right, where there no steps were built yet. And I climbed to the top, and I sat on the top of the building, which is in hindsight probably pretty dangerous. And I just said to myself, I wish somebody would donate the money to build these floors to make the yeshiva bigger and nicer and everything. But I mean, I'm not really feeling it. I mean, who would show up here and donate such a thing? I mean, there's hostile people on every side, literally. I'm just not feeling it. I think it's a tough sell. I think it's a tough sell. Baruch Hashem. Later on, I went to a yeshiva where my Rosh Yeshiva actually is the one who arranged for the yeshiva to be built. Which at the time I could not have known that was going to happen. And now it's beautiful. If you've been to Shavei Hebron, it's a beautiful, thriving yeshiva in the heart of Hebron, and it's expanding. And it's amazing to see, because I remember what it looked like, and I thought, geez, I mean, I'd like to be confident, I'd like to be optimistic about this, but I just don't see it. I think that was true in a lot of places. I mean, I know it was. You had to be, you had to look at people who were investing in this kind of stuff and just say to yourself, hey man, look, they signed the Oslo thing. It's over. like it's over. It's like a foreclosure was just signed on your house. Like, they're not going to take that back. This is over, you know? And that's the way people have looked at it for the last 25 years. And within reason. It's not it wasn't such people have no faith. No, one second, you got to be realistic over here, right? That stuff was foreclosed on. That's just the way it was. I mean, by the way, there are Jewish people who invested in properties in Beit Lechem, in Bethlehem. Now, who's the famous Jew from Beit Lechem? King David. Very good, very good. Everybody wants. Fine, King David, famous Jew from Bethlehem. Yes. So some people invested. Some Jewish people invested in Bethlehem, and today they still own the properties, but they can't go to them. They can't go to them. They're in the middle of Bethlehem, great location, and you can make a fortune on tourism. No way to go to it. You can't, even today, you can't go to it. You know, there's other places like that as well. By the way, the JNF has land in Syria and Lebanon that you can't go to either. So it's not like it's unprecedented. But the point is that if you were to do that, if you would have done that 20 years ago, if you would have invested in places that, so to speak, were foreclosed on, that was a gutsy move. As you know, President Trump, before he was president, gave $10,000 to the community of Beit El. Because Friedman, Ambassador Friedman now, who's a bankruptcy lawyer, his family's very connected to Beit El. So you know how it works over here. When the family calls, you got to give, you know. So when you know, that's how it works. So Trump, his lawyer, was this guy, so he gave the money, right? I mean, I'm sure he didn't think about it very much, because if he looked at it, he would have said, this looks like a bad investment. Like investing in Beit El, like what are you, it's next to Ramallah. I mean, think about it. We have a plan here where Ramallah is going to be more or less the economic capital of the country, and this little Jewish place is next to it. So that's going to have to go away. That's not going to last. You know? So why would you put money into that? You have to be, I mean, a little crazy or very faithful. I mean, why would you do that? Today, if you would invest in Beit El, you'd probably do very well. That'd be a very good investment. I mean, the people who invested back then did very well. Property values, it's not cheap there. Not cheap at all. It's actually quite expensive. And this is true of a lot of places. And it's getting more and more and more. And whereas before, you know, it used to be, and you know, this used to be that even in Efrat, Efrat, you know, is a very well-to-do area, Gush Etzion, not far from Jerusalem. It used to be that the government built. You didn't have private financed real estate. The government was the financer. You know, they put up the money for the infrastructure and all that kinds of stuff. And of course they made their money back, but the government financed. It wasn't private investment. Today, it's private investment everywhere. Everywhere's doing private investment. Because if you get the houses built, guess what? You're going to do very well. You're going to do very well. You got to get it built. You know, when you had President Obama, you had the building freeze. Not good. Not good for the real estate. But President Trump, he's a real estate guy. So, stopping development isn't really his thing. You know? So, you see a situation today where from every angle, it appears that the Palestinian Authority is real. And you see on the Israeli side this thing of sovereignty. Right? There's this big campaign for sovereignty. Prime Minister Netanyahu, partly for political reasons, to undercut Naftali Bennett, which was a brilliant move politically, he said that he's going to push for sovereignty, at least over the Jewish communities, or at least over some Jewish communities, depending on when you listened, right? But he's going to push for sovereignty over why? Now, again, part of it was to knock down Bennett, which was shockingly successful. But how could he even say such a thing? Because if the Palestinian Authority isn't going to exist, you don't really have to worry about offending them. I mean, how could we say that? How could you say you're going to put sovereignty over areas that are supposed to be part of a Palestinian state? You could see why that would be offensive to the Palestinian Authority, unless it doesn't matter. Because if it doesn't matter, then you don't have to worry about it, right? And so Netanyahu basically was saying, yeah, I want to get rid of Bennett, but I don't have to worry about the Palestinian Authority in order to do it. And that, you know, and I'm sure you're aware, a few years ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a famous speech. The same Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a famous speech at Bar-Ilan University, where he said he supported a two-state solution. Now, you could say, you know, at the time, Prime Minister Netanyahu was father lived to be 102. Very interesting, by the way. He lived same as Rabbi Yashiv. Or some other Yashiv. They lived almost the same 102 years. Also, it would have been interesting to see a conversation, you know. But anyway, he lived 102 years. On his 100th birthday, he was interviewed by the press. I don't know if it was his 100th birthday. When he was 100 years old, he was interviewed by the press. Some people said it wasn't very ethical. But the truth is, he was with it, and he was with it. So they said to him, you've always been a right-wing guy. You know, Netanyahu grew up in America because his father couldn't get a job in the universities in Israel because he was right-wing. So they said, you're a right-wing guy. Your whole life you've been right-wing, and you suffered for it, and this, that, and the other. What's with your kid? You know, what's with this kid? This is what's going on? He said, my kid's got you all fooled. This is all. He doesn't believe in any of this stuff. He's got you all fooled. So, okay, whether he was right or not, I don't know. But Netanyahu gave a speech where he said he supports a two-state solution. You expect another speech like that anytime soon? No. Why not? Netanyahu became such a hardcore guy. He changed his mind. He found faith. I don't know whatever you want to say. No, the Palestinians are collapsing. The Palestinian Authority is collapsing. You can talk about a two-state solution if the other side is not going to be here soon. Right? Again, so the ramifications are total.
Well,
Total.
So if it collapses and life gets a lot worse, maybe they will filter over across to Jordan. Is that maybe?
Well, the thing is that, you know, what happens when it collapses, right? Now listen, it could collapse one day, you know, but it's more likely it will collapse over time, right? Over time, you have a chance of seeing people leave. If it collapses, it's actually the opposite of what maybe you would hope for. But if it collapses at one time, you'll have a serious medical emergency situation. And it'll be very difficult for Israel not to step in and fix it. You know? If you have water issues, that's quite dead. I mean, the Gaza Strip, people talk all about how bad it is in the Gaza Strip. Well, I mean, I'm not saying there aren't challenges for the Arabs there, but there's water. If there wasn't water, you'd know. You'd know real fast. Without water, there's medical care. And if there's not, then they come to Israel. You know, if you have people dying in the streets from pneumonia, you know, you would have quite an outcry. You don't have that. You don't have that. They have a lot, you know, you have all your basic services, you have that. What happens if you stop? Well, then if it stops in one day, yeah, things can get pretty bad really quick, and Israel might have to step in and fix it. Whereas if it goes slowly like it's going right now, then yes, it is possible that people will say, yeah, like, what am I doing here? You know, like, yeah, you can live here, but it's not worth it. That is possible. That is a possibility. And that's probably in the mind of a lot of the guys now who are saying, let's not take it out so quickly. Let's see what happens in the meantime. You know, there's a lot of lack of patience in the world these days. Part of it's because of our phones. Part of it's because of other things. You know, I mean, I consider myself, I don't think that most people would accuse me of being a leftist. That'd be interesting. But you know, everyone is screaming about Netanyahu's ceasefire with Hamas. I mean, okay, it doesn't look great, don't get me wrong. It doesn't look great. But, I mean, the man said, listen, it's not over, we're going to kill them all, just give me a little more time. You can't give him a little more time? What, you got a schedule? You got something to do? Like, what's going on here? You got to be, you know, got to be somewhere. You're not going to be here in a few weeks. Like, he says, just give me a little more time here. I got to work around a few things. Bear with me.
Is that because like planning like an invasion?
Well, I'm saying
a lot
of it could be that now is a terrible leader and actually loves Hamas and wants to see them thrive and prosper. You know, but it's more likely, right, that he needs a little more time. He thinks he needs a little more time. Listen, I'm like everybody else, Netanyahu frustrates me at times. I think everybody can agree on that, right and left. There are times Netanyahu frustrates, but I mean, have a little patience here, people. Like, you know.
He's got Eurovision coming.
Anyway, Eurovision, and people make out that Eurovision is nothing. Oh look, it doesn't sound nice. It sounds stupid. They got a big fight about Shabbos now with it. Again, I'm not a big Eurovision guy. I'm not a big Eurovision guy. Putting it straight up, putting it out there. As a resident of Jerusalem, I was very happy they're doing it in Tel Aviv.
He's got all of Europe.
But it's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of prestige. It's a lot of there's a lot of diplomacy involved there. You know, so it's not like you can just say Eurovision's stupid. Maybe it is stupid, but it's also really important. You know, there's a lot of stuff. The gas mining in the Mediterranean had to be shut down because of the missiles. I don't know how much money that is a day, but I imagine it's a lot. The airport stayed open, which is good. But what if it had to be closed? That's bad. You know, so I mean, these are things that we have to take very seriously. You can't just say, well, Hamas is evil, kill them all. I mean, you can say that. I take it back. You can say that. If that's, you know, but you have to understand that there could be some serious ramifications that maybe could be avoided if things are done in a different way. And so I can't guarantee that Netanyahu is doing this best plan, but it might be. It might be. It's a real possibility that it might be, or it might not be. But maybe he deserves a little bit of time to prove one way or the other. Yes?
Back to the PA collapsing, do you think they're bringing on themselves on purpose when they say no Israelis are under, no anything? I mean, they know that they need Israel, but they're doing these things. It's like
they're doing quite a juggling act here. I mean, I don't think anybody would be jealous. They're doing quite a juggling act. You know, on one hand they have Hamas and other, we'll call right wing Arab, you know, and they have to deal with them. They can't just, you know, what are you gonna do? You can't just ignore that exists. So I mean, it's going to be really, one of the things that's going to be interesting is that you go back to 1999, which was a very important year in Israel because that's the year I came. But everyone agrees with that. I'm glad. Very good. But it was a very important year. I remember in yeshiva that year, people were there. I don't know. All the cabs around the old city were all yellow cabs with green license plates. That's the way it was. Yellow cabs with green license plates.
And what does that mean?
It was Palestinian Authority.
Oh.
It was Palestinian. These were cabs that came from the Palestinian Authority, areas A. Okay? And they came and they were, you could get in one and take it around Jerusalem. I don't know how many Jews did, but I mean, it was probably cheaper. But they were there. They were, and Arabs would come from Ramallah and other places in cabs. That's the way it was. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, a year and a half later, the Intifada, second Intifada starts, and no one's ever seen one of those cabs again in Jerusalem. They're not allowed in Jerusalem, right? So, are we going to see those cabs back soon? I think we might. I think you might see those cabs soon. I don't know exactly those cabs. I don't know what the color license plates are going to be, but I think you are going to have to see that with the sovereignty thing. It's not free, so to speak. Right? It's not so easy to annex areas and then not let people, move around. You're probably going to see it. You already have. I mean, now we had the rockets. I don't know. You had a lot of promises that Ramadan this year would be much more open to people of the Palestinian Authority to come in and pray on the Temple Mount. You've already had that going on for years. They just haven't talked about it. Now they're talking about a lot more of that. You already see a lot more movement. I was driving in Kiryat Arba the other day. Numerous Palestinian Arabs drove past me.
In Kiryat Arba?
In Kiryat Arba, there were years where you didn't see a Palestinian car driving around Kiryat Arba.
So they're not stopped at the gate?
I'm sure there are certain restrictions or whatever, but I'm telling you what I saw. You see in Hebron, it's crazy. When you drive into Hebron, people are familiar. When you drive into Hebron, outside of Kiryat Arba, there's theoretically a bunch of stores there that were all closed for many years. Today, they're open. They're open for business. And who are the customers? Who do you think? Jews, the Israelis. Yeah, they're the ones with the money, right? The car guy's got a line out the door. And not just he's got a line out the door. You could see maybe why an Israeli would bring his car to be fixed. I mean, it's literally, 70% cheaper. Okay, it is much cheaper. You would see why maybe you'd pull up, leave your car there, maybe daven a little bit, and come back when it was ready. Oh no, everyone's hanging out over there. Everyone's just hanging out. Jews and Arabs sitting together, and you're thinking to yourself, are they crazy? Just a few years ago, this was like a war zone. And then you think about it, actually that was 20 years ago, whatever. And the difference is, I never forget one time I was working on a project in Hebron, and I was in an area that maybe, according to some people, Jews shouldn't be or aren't allowed to be. And I saw this Arab girl looking at me, and I thought, I don't know what she's gonna do. Maybe she's gonna call her parents. Maybe we were across from each other, different buildings. maybe she's gonna alert somebody to my presence, I don't know, whatever. Just waved. I waved back, and that was it. You see this, and again, in Hebron it's easy because it's all very small and near each other. The amount of movement going on there, the Arabs have much more liberal policies on their movement. The army is much more restrained in many ways, a much more hands-off attitude, a much more, if we see something that looks different, it's okay. We're not, and listen, I'm not, again, don't accuse me of being a leftist here, but like in general, it's true. The army's letting a lot go, and things aren't happening. The army feels that this is not a hostile situation, and for the most part, they're 100% right. It's not. There's a lot of business going on. There's a lot of development. A lot of the Arabs are saying to themselves, well, one second. This mafia guy is going out. Who's going to be the new mafia guy? Who's our new boss? Well, maybe it's Israel. And if it's Israel, how do I make that work? Maybe I want to do business with them.